Hello again, and welcome to the Not Your Typical Business podcast. I'm your host, Katie Hanna, owner and CEO of Details Matter Bookkeeping and Advisory. I have with me Marquis, who is the owner and CEO of Peacock Tax Consulting.
hmm
So, Marquis, tell us a little bit about your business because it's a little different. What did you say to me when you get the love letters from the IRS? You're the guy to call?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I own Peacock Tax Consulting, which is a firm that it specializes in fixing IRS problems. A lot of times people will, they send in their taxes, they think everything is good to go, and then like a month later, they get a letter in the mail saying, "Hey, something is wrong, you owe us $5,000 now,"
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people get those letters and don't really know what to do or who to turn
I
to.
think it's
And
probably instant panic.
oh yeah,
Instant panic.
absolutely. One
None of
of the
us want, even me, and I'm in the industry. I don't want to see one of those.
Yep, exactly. That's like one thing I always hear people ask me. They're like, "Am I going to go to jail?" And I'm like,
hmm
"Okay, that's, one, thankfully, if when it comes to jail time, you have to be doing something like very bad and on purpose for that to kick in most of the time. But there are other consequences that could happen. They can take money out of your bank accounts. They could put liens
Yeah.
on your property, garnish your
Yeah, it's more of
wages.
a financial than a
It's
jail
more of a
time. If you
financial
weren't
consequence.
doing it on purpose, if you
Yes,
were
exactly.
honestly doing the best of your ability, or you
Correct.
trusted a tax professional that didn't
Yes.
do a good job,
Yep.
I think they're a lot more willing to work with you if they
Yeah.
think you were purposefully skirting the law, not paying
Exactly.
your payroll tax, for
hmm
employees, things like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So tell me about how in the world did you get to this place? How did you say? I'm sure you weren't 5 years old and said, you know what, I'm gonna, help people deal with IRS notices. Like,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like I literally it's not what I went to college for at all. Like I
yeah,
literally
me neither.
my degree is in Spanish. Like, I was very like I'm gonna like work for like the UN or like, be like a translator or something like
Yeah.
that. It was definitely not where I thought I was heading. I went to college and after I graduated, I kind of like found myself in a place where I was like, my Spanish abilities are pretty good, but over somebody who just grew up in a household speaking Spanish, they're gonna hire that person over somebody who learned it in school.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of was just kind of like, you know what? I'll do what I always did. I'll work in restaurants and I'll just kind of figure it out as I go. And so and so then I was in my early 20s just kind of working in restaurants and then I knew somebody who worked at the IRS and they were like, "Hey, we're hiring a bunch of people right now, throw in an application, if you want something that's not just a job but like a career,
Mm-hmm.
then, see what happens." So I was like,
Yeah. See if you can move up the ranks in government.
"Yep,
It's nice and steady. Get good benefits.
yep,
Yeah,
exactly,
I'm with you.
exactly." And so I was like, I don't really have anything better going on right now. So sure, why not? I'll throw in an application. And then 4 months later, I got a call that's like, "Hey, your start date is October 18th," and this and that. I'm like, not even an interview.
No interview. They just hired you.
Yep, they said, "No, we just
They
need
were
people."
just like, it's fine.
Yep, exactly. I think they hired like 180 people in my like hiring class or something like that. Um, and so then I got hired on and immediately they took 4 months and started right at the beginning. They're like, "This is called a Form 1040. This is an individual tax return," and then went from there. And as the process went on and as I started working there, I was like, I actually kind of enjoyed this. Like, I was the person on the phone when you file your taxes and it's been a couple weeks and you still haven't got your refund back and you call them asking where your refund is. I was the person on the other line. So I really learned in that position how to fix IRS problems and fix them on the fly because, the rules are you can only put them on hold for 5 to 7 minutes. So I
Oh,
was,
really? I don't think
yeah,
those are the rules anymore. I don't think that's the rules anymore.
I've heard things
Maybe
have
at that
changed.
time
And
when they
yeah, I've
had
heard things have changed.
extra people.
You know what, though? It's very funny you say that because in my job now, when I have to call the IRS on behalf of like my clients and things like that, in my mind, I still have that internal counter of like, I think it's been more than 7 minutes. They still haven't come back
Write
to
them
me
up.
yet. There you go. There you go.
Go talk to your supervisor. This is not right.
Exactly. But yeah, so I started working at the IRS, and then I started doing after working on the phones, I started working on amended returns. So, it would be people who were like, "Hey, I made a mistake, I need it fixed."
Hmm.
And so I was on the inside fixing those mistakes in the computer. And then, sending out new refunds or, charging more tax to their account and things like that. And so I really got a really good training, in how the tax system works, and
Hmm.
especially on how a tax problem can arise and how you can fix it at the same time. Um,
Yeah, you're the
so,
inside man.
oh
You
yeah,
know, yeah, you know all
absolutely,
their secrets.
absolutely, exactly. So I started working after working there for a couple years. I got hired by a bank, and they went ahead and brought me on, and they were like, "Hey, can you fix tax problems for our corporate clients and work in like FATCA taxes and stuff like that?" And so I was like, "Yeah, sure, I can do that." And they were paying me double than what the IRS was paying me, so I was like, "Absolutely, I can do
You
that."
can fix a lot of things for double.
Exactly, exactly. So I started working in banking, and I worked there for a couple years. And then I had a very interesting conversation with my manager at the time. That she had told me, she was like, "Hey, look, like, I see your potential. You're very talented, and I just want to let you know that you don't want to be pigeonholed. If you want to raise up the ranks in this bank, you have to move around. Like, give it maybe one more year in this tax department and then move somewhere else, and then like keep jumping every couple years so that you can build your skills and your well-rounded knowledge of the bank and move up the ladder." And then after that conversation, I think it kind of had the opposite effect on me, where I was like, I actually don't mind being
Want to
pigeonholed.
Yeah, you're like, I like what I'm doing.
I like
But I
what I do.
love that you had sort of a mentor, like
I did.
somebody that was willing to be like, here's how this works. This
Yeah.
is how the corporate ladder in the
Hmm.
bank works.
Hmm.
And if you want to do it, here, I love that. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like that is hard to find,
Oh yeah.
that you don't necessarily have somebody that's like a senior that's willing to kind of help you navigate, almost like the college counselor. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like the career counselor that's like, okay, well,
Hmm.
here's what you need to take if you want to do
Yeah.
this. So it's almost like you had that at the bank job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully
Pretty
that
much.
person got a promotion. They sound like a great
So
person.
funny enough, they did. They actually
Okay,
ended
good.
up did getting the promotion. She
They
knew what she
sound
was
like a
talking
great. They
about.
should be in charge of like the
Yes.
hiring and recruitment. Like they sound like a
Hmm.
great person.
Yep, exactly. And which it's funny, I still keep up with her today. I just sent her a picture of both of us are very big plant people, as I know you are. So I was sending pictures of
Mhm.
my plants to her today. But yeah, and so then it kind of made me realize like actually I really do like tax and I wouldn't mind staying in this field. And
Mhm.
so then I went and decided to get my enrolled agent license through the
Mhm.
IRS. And even while I was taking my classes and everything and studying for the test, I was like, oh, this will be like a nice resume booster, but like, maybe some job in the future I can use this. Um, but as I went through it more and more, and told people what I was doing, people were like, you could probably go on your own and do this. And, I would have people who were like, oh, I knew you used to work at the IRS. I have this problem. How do you fix this? And I kind of decided, like, hey, I actually really did enjoy that time in my life. I really enjoy helping people with their tax
Mhm.
problems. So why not get back into that? And so then I started Peacock Tax Consulting, And
When did you start that?
I started that. It's been almost a year.
Okay.
I think I officially opened for business September 5th, I think, of 2025.
And doing it for
Yeah,
people
exactly.
before it
Exactly.
became official.
Correct, correct. I had just been doing it as like I wasn't even accepting payment, you know. I was just kind of like, "Oh yeah, I used to work here. Sure, I'll tell you what to do." You know, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And after enough times, I'm kind of like, actually people really do need this service and,
Mm-hmm.
I could provide that service for them.
Hey, you find your strength, make sure you get paid for it,
Oh yeah,
like you gotta turn that into something that you can, so, you gotta pay your bills, gotta subsist on
absolutely.
something. So,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
And I'm sure that when you do fix the things, they think you're some sort of a wizard, like
Oh
that
yeah.
you are some, you
Yes,
know,
absolutely.
all-knowing creature that has fixed all their problems.
And it's so funny because I feel like, which I feel like happens to a lot of professionals and stuff like that. Um, but every once in a while you do get a little bit of like imposter syndrome a little bit, which
Hmm.
because it's like, yeah, I did work for the IRS. I did, study and become an enrolled agent. But after a while it gets so normalized to you is that when you work with other people and they're like, oh my gosh, this is like the most complex thing ever, you're like, I mean, it seems easy to me, like,
Yeah.
am I worth
I
it?
I went through something similar. I used to, so before I was just details matter bookkeeping. There was
Yes.
no and advisory. I would not call anything that I did advisory. I
Yeah.
would maybe say insights because I
Yes.
felt like you had to have some sort of degree or certificate.
Yeah.
I felt like you had to have something to be like an
Hmm.
advisor. And I ended up taking QuickBooks, like through the Pro Advisor, had like
Yeah.
an advisory course, and I
Hmm.
needed CPE for my license because I'm a certified bookkeeper. So I have
Yeah.
to have continuing education. So I
Hmm.
needed credits. So I was like, I might learn something. I might as well,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? As opposed to taking something you already know everything about. But what I
Hmm.
found was, oh, I already do all of these things. Like I
Yeah.
did learn some new things, but
Right.
in general, it was like, oh, I do all these things. They even went through what's the difference between like a coach and an advisor and a consultant. Like these are
Yes.
all kind of different. And I was like, oh, yeah, I definitely am an advisor. I
Yes.
advise people all the time. And so that really was like the kick in the pants. And I
Yeah.
added the and advisory because it's so much more than just bookkeeping.
Oh.
Most people would say, oh, that's data entry, that's sort of admin work. And that's
Hmm.
like this much of the puzzle, right? Like
And
the rest of it is me trying to make it so that the business owner understands what's going on, can read things, can
yeah.
interpret them, can do something with that information so they can grow and meet their goals.
Yeah.
But it's on the flip side of that is also to hopefully not get any of those nice little IRS
Right.
love letters, right?
Exactly.
That we've got everything in place. Again, that's a lot of my continuing education is I have to learn a lot of tax
Yeah.
stuff. I have to know what's deductible, what's not, what you can do,
Hmm.
what you can't do.
Yeah.
And I learn new things all the time, little
Yeah.
tips and tricks.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear like what are maybe like the top 3 red flags that are like the IRS is going to see something and they're going to like flag it for a letter.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I always tell people is like one of the quickest ways to be audited and by the IRS and receive a letter and everything like that is if you like for parents who have like split custody of a child, if
Mm.
both parents try to put that child onto their own separate tax returns, that is an immediate red flag to the IRS.
Okay,
And
yeah, you can only have one dependent on one tax return. This
exactly, exactly. It's an automatic system that checks for the social security numbers or
right.
the
And if they saw it before,
yep,
does it
absolutely.
send it to both then?
Yes, they
Yeah.
it immediately triggers an audit. And then both parties have to supply medical records, school records. What else is there? They have to prove like how many days of the week are the is the child living with you, and like it's a very like in-depth, detailed thing that you have to go through. And one thing I always tell people because I've had people ask this before, they go, "Well, my divorce decree says I get to claim the child, dot, dot, dot." And the IRS does not care about your divorce decree.
Oh,
It does,
really?
yep,
Okay.
it does not matter at all. They have their own test, and when you submit all the information, they run all the information through their own test, and then they let you know, hey, we think parent A is allowed to claim this child. The child is materially more connected to parent A than parent B, so parent B, you can't claim this child. Yeah.
Okay. So takeaways are if you're having a contentious divorce or a
Yes.
custody thing, make sure you keep your receipts of
Yes.
everything that goes along with the kids. Keep it
Yes.
in put it in a Google Drive, put it in a
Yep.
little file, because if the other parent decides to claim them as a dependent, you're
Yeah.
gonna want your receipts.
Absolutely.
See, I didn't know that.
Absolutely.
That's a good one. Well,
Hmm.
fortunately, that I haven't gone through a divorce or anything, but that's good
Exactly.
to know,
Exactly.
even for non-business owners. Everybody
Yep.
should know, because I've definitely heard of a lot of, you know, nasty custody that stuff gets real nasty.
Oh yeah.
So the last
Hmm.
thing you want on top of all that is then the IRS to come knocking
Correct.
and
Correct. You're
giving you a
already
bunch
going
of
through a
hassle when
divorce.
you've already got hassle from the lawyers and the ex-spouse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You don't want an IRS issue
We don't
thrown
need
in.
another lawyer bill on top of all, or your bill on top of all of that.
Exactly. Exactly. But yeah, so there's that case. I'm trying to think of another case that would definitely get a letter sent to you. Um, if you are a small business owner, I would say one thing to watch for is like taking unusually high expenses in different categories. The IRS kind of watches to see like, hey, this is what a hairstylist usually spends on client meals, on average throughout the country. So if you have an extremely high amount or something, that's something that'll definitely be flagged and they may come after
Oh,
you, especially when it comes to meals. The IRS looks at those and can go really hard on an audit for those. They want to know where you went out to eat, what you ate, who you ate with, and what did you discuss while you were at that business meeting. And
yes.
like they want very, very detailed records or they will deny the claim. And there have also been changes in the past couple years in the tax code where if you go out to eat and spend $100, before you were able to deduct that $100, now you can only deduct 50%.
Hmm.
And a lot of people, especially when they do it themselves, they don't know that. And so that can
So they put
really,
100% in, and yeah.
and they figure, oh, it's a business expense. I can just write it off. And it's like,
Well,
not
yes and no. Yeah, you
exactly.
can, just only half of it.
Exactly. Exactly. So,
Yeah. Well, and then it used to also be meals and entertainment, and now there's
yes,
no
correct.
entertainment.
No
So
entertainment
no
anymore.
golf trip,
No, you can't
no.
take
I took
the,
everybody out to, I don't know, the movies
yeah, the
or
basketball game, football
yeah.
game.
Oh,
You
yeah,
can't
the
do
season
that.
tickets. A lot
Yeah.
of big companies have like season tickets
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
the football team or the baseball team. I know my husband's old company had like Nationals tickets
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
they would just
No
give.
longer tax deductible.
No, very
Hmm.
nice, but
Very nice,
can't
but
take it off on your taxes.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, that
Um,
was a big thing. Yeah, I always get the receipt. I like to
yep.
have the paper receipt. Sometimes
Hmm.
that, they just kind of put it through and I might get an email later, but
Yep.
I usually write on the receipt who I met with.
Hmm.
So, for example, the other day I was at the coffee shop and so I wrote potential client meeting with,
Yep.
so and so.
Hmm.
Is that enough to put on there to be like, this is what I did? I had a potential client meeting? Like,
I would say, it can depend on the person that you get who's auditing you as well too. Because
Whether they're going to be like what, but what did you talk about? Did you
right,
talk about the weather
exactly.
or did you talk about, your
Exactly.
services?
Some can be more permissive than others. Like I heard one story one time about an IRS auditor who they took a home office deduction on their taxes. And part of the home office deduction is that that room in your house has to be used solely for your business. And when the person came and they met in their home office. You know, they had filing cabinets, they had the desk, the computer, everything like that. The auditor noticed there were a couple toys in the corner that their child had left in there, and then denied them their deduction because they said,
Oh,
well,
yeah.
it's because, you know, it's not solely used as an office, it's also a play
Yeah,
area
is
for the
mine going
child.
to be considered a greenhouse because I have all my plants in here? They're going to take off like all the corners because all the whole outside.
Oh my gosh. It
And my
depends.
fish tanks, I have fish
Yes,
tanks in here too. They'll be like, this
exactly.
place is a zoo. Like you can't deduct
Oh
it.
yeah. I mean, I have
Or
a
at
fish
least
tank
that
right next
auditor
to
would.
me
Most of
right
them
now.
probably wouldn't.
But I
Yeah,
will
because
say
when my
this.
daughter was born, I was by myself, so I had like a little pack and play
Yeah.
next to the computer. So yeah,
Hmm.
but I never, not until I bought this new house. This new
Yes.
house actually has this is a real office, like it was meant to be an office. It
Yeah.
has doors, it shuts, and it's only used for my office. Because
Yes.
my old houses, it was always like the fourth bedroom, right? The third or fourth
Hmm.
bedroom. And I shared it with my husband, and he's in there
Hmm.
playing games too.
Yep.
And so I never deducted it before until it became like its own space.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You need to be a lot more specific about any
Correct.
of these little things, like it's mileage and the
Oh
meals for
yeah.
sure. Both want to know
Hmm.
what's the purpose,
Yes.
not
Exactly.
just where did you go,
Yes.
what did you have, but why.
Why did you have to go there? You know, and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. Absolutely. I will say this though, when it comes to audits and stuff with the IRS, if you go through an audit and you get an unfavorable, outcome, and you feel like the person was like, oh, they were, a very much a stickler, just being kind of stricter and stuff like that, you have the right to appeal it. You can go ahead and file an appeal with the IRS. And now, granted, this is anecdotal. I don't have any statistics over this or anything. However, I have heard that the people who do appeals for audits and such, they a lot of times are more seasoned professionals in the IRS versus the frontline auditors.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also heard that sometimes they can be a little bit more lenient, where they can be like, okay, like I see what's going, a kid could have just easily come in without you looking and thrown a toy in there, or
Right.
something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It's
Um,
clearly not a full-on daycare where you're having keeping other
exactly,
people's kids. Your kid wandered in while you were working. Like
exactly.
that's real normal life.
Exactly. But yeah, so I wouldn't say don't go ahead and appeal and say Marquis Mendez-Crawford told me that I could do
Well,
this.
they won't listen to that. They hardly listen to their own
Right,
publications, so
exactly. But I
they
will
won't listen
say
to that.
you have the right to appeal any type of ruling against you when it
You
comes
have
to
the
this.
right to do it. Doesn't mean that that's
It
going to
doesn't mean it'll be
change it.
successful, but you have the right to have a second pair of eyes take a look at your case.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
What else? Any other like stories that are like maybe simple mistake that you think like people probably make all the time or that you saw all the time?
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. So I would say there are two things that I think most like small business owners or like 1099ers, the easiest ways that they end up falling down the rabbit hole and getting into IRS issues. One of them, I would say, weirdly enough, is filing an extension on your taxes. Now, if you do it right, then it's no problem. The IRS doesn't mind if you file an extension or anything like that. But what ends up happening a lot of times, in my experience with clients I've worked with, one, people assume an extension to file means an extension to pay, and it does
Yes.
not.
Yeah.
So they will, be like, oh, well, I filed an extension because I didn't have the money right now to pay my taxes. And I'm like, okay, so you still have penalties on your account because you did that.
Mm-hmm.
It just because you file an extension,
Yeah,
you
that was just
still
for the paperwork.
that's just for the paperwork.
Yeah.
You still have to give a lump sum or however approximately what you would owe left to the IRS as close as what you think the final number is going to be while you finish up your paperwork and then file an extent, and end up filing
Yeah,
later in
and
the
I
year.
wonder if that's going to change because the way that the industry has changed, right? We had
Hmm.
so many accountants retiring,
Yep.
and so, what I'm hearing for people from CPAs, tax firms, is that they're only getting to about a third of the returns by April
Hmm.
15th.
Oh yeah.
Just out of we don't have the manpower, we don't
Oh yeah.
have the bandwidth to deal with this many tax returns, and that's the number one reason that people are going on extension is
Yep.
not necessarily fault of their own. I mean, certainly some of them are slackers that didn't
Yes.
get their information to the
Hmm.
people in time, to their tax preparer in time. But yeah, I wonder if they're going to take that into account because it's like I had my certainly at that point though they would have already paid, right? They would have if they had
Yeah.
their bookkeeping done, if they
Correct.
knew what at least generally what their liability was going to be.
Correct.
But yeah,
Exactly.
it's tough because I hear also from a lot, people get upset about being put on extension, and I can
Hmm.
understand. They're like, I got my stuff to them in February,
Yeah.
and I'm like, they just, you and 300 other people got your stuff to them
Right.
in
Right.
February. There's just not enough people to do
I
them.
agree. I agree.
They're already working 90-hour work weeks. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, during tax season, it can be very hectic and very crazy dealing with all the returns and stuff. And just for those people who are upset about being on extension, like it won't penalize you if you do it right. Your tax professional, says like, hey, I think we should be put on an extension for this just so we have extra time to, get all the paperwork around. As long as
hmm
you pay anything that you still left owed by, April 15th for, individual cases and stuff like that, then you'll be fine. But it's just the people who think that, oh, extension means I can pay later, and it
yeah,
doesn't mean that.
it's not an
Yes.
extension on payment.
Yes. And my second thing that I would like that is also a huge tax landmine, especially for 1099ers and small business owners, which this should be an advertisement as to why you need a good bookkeeper or a good tax professional. I get cases all the time, and every case is unique and different. One thing that happens in almost every single case that I work with is I look at their transcripts and I'm like, are you making estimated tax payments? And I get answers as to, oh, I just don't do that. Or I've had people who have owned businesses for years and have told me, what's an estimated tax payment? That they get into business, and I always tell people, I say, you know, a lot of my clients are very good at what they do. Whether that be realtors or
Absolutely.
electricians and stuff, but because they're really good at that one specific thing, and they do that very well and spend all their time doing that, they don't have time to read over every single tax law that applies to them when it comes to
Right. If
real
somebody's
estate.
not telling you, like, how would you know?
Yeah,
That there's already enough things to worry about, but and yeah, unfortunately, a lot of these tax preparers are not really prompting either.
yeah.
And I would add on to that that
Hmm.
the second part is even if you are making estimated payments, if your income or your profit drastically changes,
Yep.
that it needs to be checked. Like,
Recalculated, readjust.
yeah,
Yeah.
recalculated because I ran into that myself. So when I
Hmm.
very first started, I was using like a local tax preparer. This
Yep.
guy, you couldn't even email him anything. You had to show up. I mean, just
Hmm.
right, like old guard dude.
Yes.
And he was only charging me like $150. So, you
Hmm.
get what you pay for a lot of
Right.
times. But I mean, I had one I exploded. When I decided that I was going to start building the business, I went
Yep.
from like my little group and it was also COVID time. So like
Yeah.
people were like, I'm in trouble, please help me.
Hmm.
And so I made as much in like one quarter, like the first quarter that I had in the previous year. Like
Yeah.
that drastic of a
Yeah.
change. And I mean, I knew I don't know how to calculate estimated payments. I could
Hmm.
probably figure it out. I've just never had to do
Yeah.
it. I'd let the tax people figure that out
Yeah.
because your personal is intermingled in that
Yep.
depending on what your structure is. So
Hmm.
all of that. And so like I was only making like $300 payments, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I just like randomly sent the IRS like $3,000,
Hmm.
added another zero on
Yep.
there, and yeah, it was still not enough. I still, because I just never got in touch with this guy. I'm like,
Yep.
I need to like have a tax planning meeting. I don't think he was
Yes.
doing any tax planning meetings.
Hmm.
And so I owed a lot at the end, but I
Yes.
think that's my input is also even if you're doing your best, if you haven't checked in
Hmm.
mid-year, maybe,
Yeah.
if you've had a lot of change, if everything's same as last year, maybe
Right.
a tiny bit of growth, you're probably fine. But,
Yeah.
if something's drastic, and I guess the other way too, don't overpay. If
Yeah.
if your business, took a turn for the worse,
Yeah.
maybe talk to them again and, say, they'll tell you whether you need to keep paying in or not. Because
Hmm.
I've had years where they're like, don't pay anything else for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
You're good. You already paid in enough.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah,
And
I get that too, where they're like, oh, we just don't do that. And I'm
yeah.
like, well, you're kind of required. I mean, you cannot, and then you pay
Right.
penalties when you pay the whole big chunk. Also,
Right.
who wants to pay the whole big chunk in April? You
Right.
know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
that. What? It's like $50,000 or something maybe,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
you just saved that up and just had it in a account. Like I don't want to
Exactly.
pay a big chunk all at once. Split it up into quarters. Makes it a little
Exactly.
easier to manage.
Hmm. Hmm. And to build off of something that you mentioned too, especially if you're somebody who files like a Schedule C or something like that, whether you be 1099 or a small business owner or something like that, I would probably recommend at least twice a year a meeting with your tax advisor, just to
Hmm.
make sure that everybody is on the same page. We're planning effectively. If you're an entrepreneur and you only see your tax advisor on April 15th just to file your taxes, it may be a couple more $100 to see them, a second time during the year, but it's really worth it because not only can they help spot things that could be a major issue before they happen, but they could also, have the time to be like, hey, let's review your tax return. Oh, I see, here's a deduction that we're not fully taking advantage of. Maybe we can
Right,
do
find
that.
more opportunities
Yep,
for extra
exactly.
deductions, or sometimes you do get like it's one of those. It's a great problem when you're making a lot of profit, right?
Yep,
We all love to see profit, but that does mean that your taxes are going to be a lot more. So
yep,
I know I've been in conversations, and I've had conversations where it's like, hey, if you were going to buy that vehicle, that new
yeah.
piece of equipment, why don't you go ahead and do that this
Oh,
year?
yeah.
Because we can take, this much
Yeah,
off of it the first year. Like, there are things that you can do if you have more money, or, and certainly if you have less, to make
yeah,
sure you're not overpaying.
yeah,
I think, especially with individuals, they love to play that game of like, oh, I'm waiting for my refund. And I think
yes.
us in the industry are like, that was your money. You're
Yeah,
not
well,
getting free money from the government. You paid
right.
the government and you overpaid them, and they got to hold that money for
Exactly.
free,
Yep,
no interest the
yep.
whole time.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, sure, it's nice to get a big chunk of money back, but you could have had that. Maybe you could have put it in a high yield savings account,
Yep.
a money market this whole time instead of giving
Hmm.
it to the government. So I also try to tell people, especially like I feel like it's more individuals. Business
Yes.
owners aren't usually as bad, but the individuals that are like, oh, I can't wait to get my refund.
Yep.
Like, you
Yep.
actually don't want a refund. You want to
Right.
be like, as close to zero as possible. You pay what you
Exactly.
owe and don't give them extra.
Exactly.
Put that in a savings. Go on vacation. Do something,
Right. I've had people ask me, they were like, what's like a red flag that I should look out for when it comes to finding a tax preparer? And I always tell them, I say, if your tax preparer leads with, oh, I can get you the biggest refund guaranteed, that's not normally a good sign.
Yeah.
Because a tax preparer should, in my opinion, their main goal should be to make sure you remain compliant And then also, if there are some, make sure you're taking advantage of all, possible deductions and stuff like that that are afforded to
Yeah.
you.
But again, if you're checking that mid-year and you're like, hey,
Yeah.
we've put everything in that we can put in. I've had that where, they were just like, you don't need to make any more estimated payments. Like you're good.
Hmm.
I'm also an S corp, so I have
Yep.
some of it is going through my withholdings, the
Yep.
payroll tax. So you have to kind
Hmm.
of balance the estimated payments with the withholding tax. So once they
Hmm.
look at the paycheck, they look at like my pay stubs of like how much have I put in
Yep.
through the withholdings, and
Hmm.
then so that sometimes they'll be like, that's good enough, like whatever you're going to withhold for the rest of the year, that's totally fine, you don't need to do any more estimated payments. So it
Oh
can
yeah.
go either way, but
Yes.
certainly you don't want to be surprised if things
Right.
have really changed or you're not putting enough in. You don't want that 20, 30,
Hmm.
$40,000 bill at the
Yeah.
end.
Oh yeah.
That's especially if you're surprised by that.
Hmm.
I think people have this some sort of opinion like they're getting, yeah, like free money, like it's like a
Right.
stimulus check. It's not a
Right.
stimulus check. That was money that was taken out of your paycheck as an individual,
Exactly.
given to the government, and then they held it
Yeah.
and gave it back to you later. Like
Right.
that's not
Exactly.
it's not the same.
Exactly.
If
It's more
it was free, that's great, but that's not
right.
how it
Right.
works.
That's exactly it too. Like when it comes to refunds, it's just like you said, it's just money that you overpaid. It was your money,
Yeah, it's a
and you
refund.
could
Like
have
it's
paid less throughout the year and still
yeah, you could have
and
had more
had
in
that money.
your bank account throughout the year.
Exactly.
Maybe you would have bought that car, right? You would have had money for the
Mhm.
car payment or to pay down some, the horrendous student loans or
Yes. Yes.
whatever it is that you got going
Hmm.
on.
Yep, I know
Put
about
that
that.
towards your, like your little money market for, I have mine is called fun money.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's for vacation, but sometimes it's also just like, we take the kid and we go bowling, we go to the
Yeah.
arcade, you know what I mean? So I call it fun
Hmm.
money. If you want to
Hmm.
just kind of go spend a little, have a little fun.
Hmm.
So I have a whole account for that.
Yeah.
I just put a little bit each month in there. So,
There you
and it
go.
makes a little interest. It's a
Yeah.
savings account. So you get to make money
Hmm.
on your money. You should always make
Yep.
money on your money.
Of course. Of course.
These are the tricks from
Exactly.
the financial people, especially, yeah, working in banks too. You'll
Oh
also
yeah.
know how it goes. Yeah.
Oh,
Put it in there.
absolutely.
Let them give you some money for holding on to it.
Exactly. Exactly. Uh,
All right. Any other final thoughts, or is there anything else that you're like, either individuals or business owners, like really need to know about, or just maybe something that you have learned as a business owner that you didn't really realize going into it that you
hmm. That's a very interesting question. I've kind of learned more recently, which I didn't realize, like when starting this, that one of the keys I think to success as a business owner is creating like repeatable processes and like specific ways of this is step one, step two, step three, step four with like every client that you have. Just because like once you have something like that down, one, it lets you like know how a client interaction is going to go. It just leads to more efficiency. And then
Mhm.
also too, when you have a set process, you can, maybe automate some of it and stuff like that and really start saving. Because I mean, as a business owner, you already know time is a very precious resource. So any type
Oh
of
yeah.
time that you can save, you definitely want to do. So I would say, if to really help better yourself, start trying to see like things that like can this be made into a standardized process that
Mhm.
happens every single time this specific action happens or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and there, like you said, there's tons of tools out there.
Oh yeah.
There's like project management type tools where you
Hmm.
can put, like, I have one that's specific for my industry. That's like my practice management
Yeah.
for bookkeepers. But I also like personally, I'll use like a Trello list of,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes it's like I'm working on sort of business development stuff or
Yes.
marketing stuff, right? Not related to actual like client work.
Yeah.
And you can put checklists, you can put,
Mm-hmm.
attachments, all kinds to kind of organize your thoughts.
Yeah.
I find that to be helpful too. And then I'll say from the other side of things
Mm-hmm.
that if you start doing that now, if you do decide to grow and add employees,
Yes.
you've got all your little SOPs
Yep.
for your employees. So the
Mm-hmm.
whole like training somebody to do what you do would
Yes.
be a lot easier because it's like you follow
Mm-hmm.
this process. And I did
Yep.
not do that. I did not have it all written down. I probably still don't
Mm-hmm.
have it all written down because I am not great at that.
Yeah.
But if if you're thinking about it,
Yes.
or maybe as you're sort of building and getting ready to the point
Yep.
where you want to hire somebody, do that early. Start
Oh,
writing it down. Start making some like lists, checklists, because it will only serve you later.
exactly. I completely agree. Like, and it's hard as a business owner because so like a lot of times like which thankfully he is a wonderful godsend addition and stuff like that. But my husband, he helps me a lot with a lot of like my admin stuff. Things
hmm
that like you don't need like a to be an EA to like access or see and stuff like that. He helps me a lot with that kind of stuff. Um, but it was kind of hard at first because I'm like, oh no, either A, he'd be like, how do you do this? And I'm like, oh, it's just like all in my head. Like I just kind of just know, like, how to do it. And he's like,
Yeah.
well, could you like write it out for me or like, explain to me like
Yeah, like
what's the
teach me
process?
how to do it so I
Yes,
can write it down.
yes.
Have you used Scribe?
No, I haven't.
So Scribe is you can get it as like I use Chrome, so you can get
Yeah.
it as like a Chrome extension.
Uh-huh.
So when you turn that on, it not only it does like the step by step, but it also has screenshots with
Oh,
like the click, where
really?
did you click? So like you can have it
Mm.
running while you're doing the thing and it records everything. And that now has AI. So if it knows that like the most recent one I did, right? There was like you click here and it's a drop down and you
Yeah.
want this thing on the drop down. It like combined that into one step, right? Instead of having click this
Ah,
box and then click the drop down and then click this thing in the drop down. It like was like, one sentence about you
yeah.
click this drop down and select whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that has been really nice.
Oh,
I've used that
yeah.
a lot because I'm very much a visual. I don't think I can tell you how to do it. I
Yes.
could show you how I do it.
Mm-hmm.
I am very
Mm-hmm.
big on videos, screenshots, and now the Scribe that has, and I've sent them to clients. Sometimes you
Yes.
need to send it to a client. Like, I've had clients where it's like, okay, you need to add us in like Maryland Tax Connect, right? They have
Yeah.
to add us so we can pay sales taxes for them. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, you go in here, you click here, and it's all screenshotted and step by step so they can, and then I can send that to any new client that I need to set up the sales tax.
Oh, that's a really good
So,
idea.
very helpful for those kinds of things. Some people are a lot better at the just reading, but I'm
Yes.
definitely more of the visual. I know a lot of
Mm-hmm.
visual
Mm-hmm.
learners. I'm like, give me the screenshots, then I can follow. Like, where
Yeah.
did you click? Don't tell me where it is. Just let me
Yeah.
see.
So another tip that I'll give for that is that one thing that I have started doing myself because when it comes to explaining stuff to people, I tend to be like a rambler to where I'll
Yes,
start
me
like,
too.
okay, so step one, you do this, and then
Well, let me
also you
back
have to
up.
do, oh wait, no, actually, not in this case. In this case, you know what? I'll just leave that for step four. Okay, so step three, you do, oh wait, no, step two, you have to do this first, and then and so what
This,
I've done
yeah.
is
That's
like,
why I stopped training my staff. Like, I have people that train my staff because the first couple people I trained, they're like, you started at step 10.
yes,
You skipped. I figured you had one through nine figured out, guys. Like,
yes, exactly. So what I do in those cases, like especially like if I'm like writing it out how to do it, I just put all my rambling thoughts down and then throw that into like a chat GPT or a
Yeah,
Claude.
well, now they have ones that you can just verbally dump.
Oh, yeah,
I haven't
really?
tried it yet, but
Yeah.
like I know people that have said like they'll go for a walk,
Yeah.
right? And they will just brain dump whatever's in their head into
Hmm.
one of these like sort of notes. Somebody can
Hmm.
tell me in the comments maybe
There you
if they're
go.
using
Yeah.
one of those, but or maybe even Gemini because I have like Gemini. I
Oh,
use
yeah,
Gemini
Gemini
because
can
all of
work.
my stuff's like Google Workspace.
Hmm.
So yeah, like you could just open that and just kind of like brain dump into it, and it would like
Yes.
give you something that's a lot more structured that you
Yes.
could then
Yes.
save.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, that's what I need to start doing more of is like I do brain dump a lot
Yeah.
into AI. I'm using a ton of AI, not necessarily for anything accounting related,
Yeah.
but for any of the, hey, help me work through like it helped me restructure my packages. Like I'm going
Yes.
back almost like I'm talking to myself, but
Yeah.
it's throwing ideas back at me.
Oh, I love
Um,
that. I do that all
mhm,
the time with my preferred AI is Claude. I love Claude.
mhm.
I pay the $20 a month or whatever for it and stuff like that. But it's really great as just like bouncing around business ideas off of and stuff like that. Like,
Mhm.
what do you think if I did this and this? And then like, it'll give you like, oh well, the pros of this are dot dot dot, the cons of it are dot dot dot. And I'm like, oh yeah, that is a good point. I didn't think about that.
So I've gotten the pros and cons from it
Yep.
before. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and you can get it to do some research like, hey,
Oh
like what
yeah.
are other businesses like mine, doing?
Yep.
How much are they charging for this?
Oh
It
yeah.
helped me. I mean, I obviously had my own calculations for pricing, but I
Yeah.
also asked and like, put that through the AI to be
Yep.
like, do these make sense?
Yep.
And also too, if you have packages, like does the difference between you know what I mean? Is your one package like $100 and then your second package is 2,000? Like now we've got
Correct.
some weird split,
Yep.
like
Yep.
does it make sense when you put it all together and to help kind of put it togetere?
Oh yeah.
Oh, and naming
Absolutely.
things
Oh
and
yeah.
but my favorite about it is it's a tool. It's not actually a person,
Right.
and it always agrees with you. So I was rewriting a lot
Yeah.
of content because I changed my packages like not too long ago, a little
Yeah.
while ago, and it kept saying, I'm kind of going for premium, right? Sort of
Yeah.
we're a step above because
Yeah.
we're really experienced. We're dealing with bigger businesses, but
Hmm.
it kept saying elite, and I'm like, elite just doesn't hit right. It like
Yeah.
it's almost like, oh, you can't talk to us because we're elite. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like
Right.
that's not it at all. So I was like, please
Hmm.
stop. Let's not use elite. And it was like,
Yeah.
you're totally right. That is just not the right word for you. Yeah, you came up with it. It's just like, oh, you are so right, Katie. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
everything is like you're a genius. You're so
Yes.
smart.
Yeah, exactly. Like there have been times where I've literally put Claude or ChatGPT, I'm like, please give me the honest truth about this. Like, do not sugarcoat it. Do not just tell me that this is a good idea when it's not.
Yeah.
Because it will. If you're not careful, it will just start like being like you'll
Yes.
become like, oh my gosh, I am such a smart business
I'm so
person.
smart. Yeah. I'm amazing. ChatGPT tells me so. It's like my mom says I'm
Exactly.
beautiful.
Exactly.
ChatGPT
Exactly.
said I was smart, so I must be, right? I love that.
Oh yeah.
It's making things easier. And so our practice management does now have AI, and I
Yeah.
have been using it for client stuff. This is all within like our secure portal, secure
Right.
site. So
Right.
that's the other thing, right? ChatGPT is everybody
Yeah.
gets that. There's,
Oh
that's
yeah.
open.
Yep.
This
Yep.
is only for the one instance. So,
Exactly.
so I've told my staff like check it out. Like it points out things, you know what I mean? Like check the
Yep.
math, right?
Hmm.
Always check the math, but if you're not sure where to start,
Yes.
right now because it's sort of testing it, I'm kind of like asking it things that I already know the answers to see
Yeah.
what it says.
Yeah.
Like I was going through and I was like, hey, is this client like missing any deductions? Is this one like there's one that you can just be like, tell me like do like sort of an advisory, like what's going
Yeah.
on with this
Yeah. Yeah.
client,
Yeah.
and it gives you they're up 70% over last year, blah blah blah. we still are going to be needed to interpret that, right?
Exactly.
Like you're interpreting IRS speak.
Yes.
I'm interpreting even the percentages and the, Gemini or AI speak to something a real person, a real business owner can understand.
Oh, yeah.
But, if I know the answer and it's just kind of like, here's pulling all these things out, or I know how to check.
Yes.
I certainly don't think you want to go in there for something that you wouldn't know how to
correct.
Fact check it.
Yes. Yeah. Like,
I could do the same calculations. So if I really was going to then advise the client and say, hey, this is going on, you're making double this year. I want to go back in their actual QuickBooks and know, are they really making double? Like, is that accurate?
Yeah.
Because my other favorite is, and I was just doing this because I'm going to do a webinar next week on the family leave here in Maryland is getting ready to come out. And so I'm working on like emails, just, the email to send out that's like, hey, do you want to come to the webinar? Mm-hmm. And it, for whatever reason is like, next Friday. And it's like thinks that the 7th is Thursday. It has no idea about days of the week.
Yeah.
Like that seems like such a simple thing, but I can't tell you how many times it's gotten the day of the week wrong.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, Thursday is the 6th. Friday is the 7th.
So yeah.
And it's like, oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. Oh, you're so smart.
You're so right. You're so smart. You're so good at calendars.
No, exactly. That's like, so like a project that I've been working on is working on a podcast myself for Peacock Tax Consulting. And so I've been bouncing a lot of ideas off of Claude and things like that. And like, it will come back to me and be like, oh, for your In Good Standing podcast. And I'm like, I never said that was the name of it. Where did you get that?
Just named it. Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just decided, we'll just call it something.
Exactly. So
instead of unknown podcast, it's just, yeah.
Exactly. So it'll definitely hallucinate sometimes. So you kind of have to watch it.
You got to watch it. But it's a great tool because even if you have to be like, that's not the name of my podcast or that's not the right day of the week, the rest of it you didn't have to come up with out of, the clouds, out of nothing. So
I remember one time.
It's at least a starting place.
Yes. I remember one time I was, I think I was talking to ChatGPT and I had it for like a couple months. And like all of a sudden it kept being, what did it say to me? It said something like, ooh, yes, girl, you've got that. Like, I'm like, you realize I'm a guy, right? And that's like updating memory,
Like, no, I didn't know that.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my God, that's hilarious. It's making a lot of assumptions. You know what happens when you assume, right?
Yes, it is. Assuming my gender for me.
Yeah. You type like a girl.
Exactly.
Apparently
I do. Oh,
all right. Well, that's fun. So we'll wrap it up though. And so tell people how they can get a hold of you or where they can maybe follow you or follow your podcast that's going to come out. Cause I'm sure you have all kinds of fun tips and tricks on your socials and
Yes, absolutely. So anywhere on socials, I'm Peacock Tax Consulting. You can look that up. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So anywhere on there, Peacock Tax Consulting, I come up. You can also
and we'll tag you.
Yep, thank you. You could also go peacocktaxconsulting.com and look me up there. Or you can always, give us a call, 215-297-6622. Or shoot us an email as well at info@peacocktaxconsulting.com. All that's on the website. As long as you remember Peacock Tax Consulting, you'll be able to find me.
You'll be able to figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah, we'll tag everything. But yeah, in case anybody gets any love letters that they might need a little bit of extra help with.
Yeah, exactly.
You're the guy. You have all the inside knowledge from being there. So that's really all you needed, right? Like I'm already sold. You were in there. You know what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
If I get one, I'm calling you.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of people
If I get one, then it really is time for panic.
Yeah.
And that's really bad because something ain't right. All
Oh
right.
my
Well, thank
gosh.
you so much for being on.
Of
And
course. Thank you for
yeah,
having
invite me
me.
to when you get your podcast up and running. I'd love to come chat again.
Oh, perfect. I would love that. I'd love to have you on. Sounds good.